all other Indian politicians, journalists, and political parties, Indian Army Chief General Bipin Rawat has labeled the peaceful political campaign of Referendum 2020 to be an act of terrorism. He mentions that the Referendum 2020 campaign and SFJ are external threats to Punjab.
And the Army Chief now, in his statement, has said, and I'm quoting, attempts are being made through external linkages to revive insurgency in Punjab.
But how can SFJ be any kind of threat to Punjab, being that it is a human rights advocacy group that is leading a peaceful and democratic referendum campaign? Well, this should not come as a surprise to any of us, being that the Indian regime has been labeling Sikh activists as terrorists since the early 90s. The indigenous people of Punjab, who suffered oppression that was inflicted on them by India, initiated the Khalistani movement. On one hand, there was the devastating Operation Blue Star that killed thousands of civilians inside of their holiest place of worship. And then came the horrific 1984 state-sponsored genocide of the Sikhs. The movement has now taken a turn to Referendum 2020, which demands for a vote to be held to ask the Sikh population if they want a separate state. Disappointed, but not surprised, SFJ released a statement to Army Chief General Rawat, warning him that he will be facing legal consequences if he continues to defame SFJ and its Referendum 2020 campaign. But this is all nothing new. For decades now, India has gotten away with suppressing minorities and playing the victim. More recently, Army Chief General Rawat released a statement referring to Referendum 2020 campaign's presence in Punjab, saying that the union government is taking full action on this. And by full action, what he means is that innocent Sikh activists are being picked up, detained, and tortured every single day, even as we speak, just for their political views. Now, after 34 years since the 1984 genocide, India says that the Sikh community brought the genocide upon themselves. An example of this is how Indian Consul General Sandeep Chakravarti from New York reacted to Connecticut being the first U.S. state to pass the bill to commemorate November 1st as Sikh Genocide Remembrance Day. Chakravarti wrote a letter to Senator Austin of Connecticut where he not only denies, but also attempts to justify the 1984 genocide. In the letter that Chakravarti wrote to Senator Austin, he says in reference to the genocide, quote, "The anti-Sikh violence habits roots in years of terrorism perpetrated by Sikh terrorists." Quote, is Consul General Sandeep Chakravarti really attempting to justify the state-sponsored systematic genocide of Sikhs, where innocent children were burned alive in the streets of New Delhi, where women not only lost husbands, but were raped throughout India, where hundreds of gurdwaras were set ablaze, and the death toll at 30,000 killed? There is no debate, and more than enough evidence that proves that in 1984, India sponsored a systematic genocide of Sikhs. In a recent press release, SFJ has called for declaring Chakravarti as persona non grata, and Manhattan Court has issued summons to Chakravarti, who will be brought to justice. And so will anyone else who designs malicious campaigns against Referendum 2020.